God bless you. We're so glad to have this opportunity to talk with Mother Pullin. She's the church mother at Lucas Temple, True Church of God in Christ. And today we just want to have a conversation about being a mother and the journey toward your journey toward becoming a mother. And then some of the things that, as a mother, you're inspired to teach. And we have a situation now where we have a lot of young women that needs motherly teaching, and they need the instructions of a mother. And we acknowledge that God had these roles to be placed in His body, where there's a mother to instruct the young women. And how you feel today?
Oh, I feel wonderful.
Yeah.
I feel great.
Well, good. That's good. And how did you come into God and come into motherhood?
Well, my mother, she knew about holiness, but we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
My father was in a Baptist church, and so when they married, she started attending the Baptist church with my father. So that's all we knew up until I reached the age of 12.
Mm-hmm.
That's when she heard about the True Church of God in Christ, and she went out and she started visiting. And one time we went there, Bishop Lucas was there, and he was running a revival.
Mm-hmm.
And she heard the word of God, and she told Bishop Lucas she wanted to join up with the church.
Mm-hmm.
And we were children, so we followed her,
Mm-hmm.
and we joined also.
Uh,
And we got baptized, and I've been on the ship since that time.
mm,
And I took this thing serious. I thought once you make that commitment to God that I should keep it fulfilled.
mm-hmm.
And that's what I was determined to do. And I went on through high school, graduated high school, married my husband, and then we left the church in Thomaston and came to Lucas Temple.
Mm-hmm.
Now before then, my husband, well, he grew up in Savannah, but he was already attending Lucas Temple because he was going to Morehouse College.
I see.
And so when we married, we moved here, and we continued with the church, and still here today.
All right. Wonderful.
We raised our family, raised the children, still stayed with the Lord.
Yeah.
He's one of the deacons here at the church,
Yes.
Bishop Jeffries, and you.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all saw fit to make me the church mother here.
Mm-hmm.
When I came here, I didn't have no idea that was happening.
Right.
But I think that's what the Lord had in plan for me to be.
So you didn't see that for yourself?
I didn't see it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I just wanted to be real in what I was doing, and I took this journey,
Mm-hmm.
seriously. And I just wanted to be a good member.
Yeah.
I didn't want to cause the pastor any problems.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I caused my mother any problems.
Uh-huh.
She told me when I would get married, she said, "You one of my best children."
Uh-huh.
I kind of wish you stayed around a little longer.
Uh-huh.
But I went on and got married. But I didn't forget my mother.
Right.
I still went back and visited my mother up
Mm-hmm.
until she died.
Yes. Well, that's good. And so to your union with Deacon Pullin, how many children?
We have 7 children.
7 children. How many boys? How many girls?
We have 3 sons and 4 daughters.
Okay, it's a pretty good mix. Pretty
Yeah.
good mix. So you know how to raise both of them.
Yeah, 1 grandson.
One grandson, one grandson. And so you've kind of, you know what it's like to raise boys and you know what it's like to raise girls.
Yes, I do.
And then you've already completed the whole process where, you know, you got the infant, the little baby, and all the way on up to teenage years. And then, you know, you got some that maybe have even married.
That's right.
And so you understand how to raise a child and then the different stages of parenthood.
Yes.
Because it's not all one stage. It's some different stages, you know, in parenthood.
Yeah. Now, about a year ago, we went out to eat dinner one day,
Mm-hmm.
and some of my children were with my husband and I. And we were just sitting at the table. We were just talking, eating and talking.
Mm-hmm.
And they told us, they said, we thought y'all were mean when we were growing up.
Uh-huh.
But she said, one of my daughters told me, said, y'all were pretty good parents.
Uh-huh.
Say, I thank God for y'all. Say, y'all taught us well. Say, I have to say so myself.
Yeah.
And you know, that really made me feel good.
Right.
You know, for my children to tell me that.
Right.
You know, it really did.
Right. You know, and I can imagine. I'm a parent myself, and my children are adult children now. And so, one of the things that you may have as a mother is thoughts about how you did. You know,
Yeah.
what your report card looked like.
I think my report card looked pretty good. I
Uh-huh.
think it looked pretty good. But of course, with looking back, I see some things I could have done better.
Yes.
And so now with my grandson, I do better.
Right.
And and like I told one of my daughters, I said, one thing about this journey here, when you learn better, you
Uh-huh.
do better.
That's
I
right.
said, I learned better and I'm doing better.
Right.
Because she told me, she said, I noticed a difference in you.
Yeah.
Said, look like you're doing even better than what you were before I left home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I told her, I'm learning, I'm still learning.
Right.
And as I learn, I want to do better.
Right.
You know, I still want to be the mother I need to be to you all.
Right.
And I want them to come to me. And they do. When they have problems, they come to me and they
Mm-hmm.
talk to me.
Right.
And that's what I want.
Right.
You know, I don't want them to have to go to somebody else. I want my children to come to me.
Right.
I went to my mother and I talked to her.
Right.
You know, it wasn't a problem.
Right, right. And that's good. That's good. And in parenting, you know, as we have our little children, we do the best we know how to do.
Right.
And but as we go through that process, we learn. And like now I got some grandchildren myself. And I see some things differently myself. And so if I had to raise children all over again, I would do better. And I have some regrets, you know, with my children, and I would do some things differently now. With that being said, I think that it would be good for young people now that have a young family to pay attention to people like yourself, to actually ask you certain things and questions about, you know, how you learned and what you've learned, so that they don't have to make the same mistakes. And then next thing you know, they're a great grandparent, but they weren't the best parent that they could have been
Right.
because they didn't learn from a person like yourself. You know, and I think that if we can share the knowledge and the things that we've learned to the generation that's coming along, then they can be that much further ahead. They don't have to make the same mistakes that you or I may have made. They can make some new ones, and then maybe they can pass along some better ideas to their children. You agree with that?
Yes, I do. And you know, when I married, I knew that I don't just marry, but you know, when you know, I read my Bible and I heard the gospel coming forth, and it said, marry and bear children. So I knew when I was taking on the husband that not only do I just marry him, but, you know, multiply, help the family to increase.
Right.
So I knew that. And I always felt like that God is not telling me something I can't do.
Right.
He's saying that for a reason. So I was like, I still got to come under obedience. You know, even though if somebody asked me, say, how many children you want? I would say, oh, about 3.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, I found myself, I had 7.
Uh-huh.
So I thank God for all 7. And I love those 7 just like if I had 3.
Right.
Because they came from me.
Right.
And I feel like God gave them to me.
Right.
And then I have them here. And when I'm gone on, see, they can go on. They can increase. They can do something better. But if I didn't have them, then when I'm gone, that's just it.
That's it.
But see, I have somebody that can keep the legacy going.
Keep it going. That's right.
And I think, and when I think about that, I would think to myself, well, this is what God had in mind. That's what I'm thinking. So when I leave, then another generation come on.
That's right.
And then my children have children, got another one coming on.
That's right. That's right. And it's a blessing.
It is.
Children are a blessing. And actually you can really enjoy parenthood. You can enjoy motherhood. You know, it sounds like you have enjoyed it and even enjoying it now. And what are the age ranges of your children right now?
Oh, let me see now.
The oldest to the youngest.
46 to about 38, I believe.
Okay, 46
46
to
to
38.
38.
Okay.
So they pretty close in age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in fact, I remember your children and I. We kind of grew up together,
Right.
and I remember, you was a friend of my mother,
Yeah.
and I remember y'all used to come over to the house sometimes, and so I remember y'all coming along and along that time, and um, so as you think about it, what skills did you begin to have to employ, especially as you had multiple children? And it sounds like you had them kind of together. So y'all was kind of growing together, the children growing together, y'all growing as parents. And what kind of skills did you begin to acquire that would be good for young mothers today?
I learned that you have to spend time with. Now, like when I had my first one, only had one, so I had more time with that first one.
Mm-hmm.
And my last one, I had more time with her because when all the other one was in school,
Uh-huh.
and during the day it was just her and me.
Mm-hmm.
So we would get up and we could do things. And I had learned from the first one, my first son that I had learned from her, how to just deal with her more patiently than what I did with some of the other ones.
Oh wow! So really, even with your seven, by the time you got to seven, you knew some stuff to do.
Yeah, I was still learning,
But
learning how to deal with children and how to raise them.
hmm
Some mistakes I made with maybe the first two. By
uh,
the time I got to that third one,
yeah,
I understood.
you
I knew
understood.
what to do.
You understood.
Yeah,
That's good. And that's why I know the scripture says in Titus 2 and 3, it says, the aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not giving them much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. Uh, so to love their children, to love their husbands, to love their children. So teach them to love their husbands, to love their children. Don't you love? Then you love your husband when you got married,
I did.
and then when you had your child, you got your first little child, and you just cradling your little baby. It was a son. The first one was a son.
That's
Cradling your
right.
little son in your arms. You thought you loved him then, right?
I did.
But was it something for you to learn?
Yeah, it was definitely something to learn
Yeah.
because I never been a mother before,
Mm-hmm.
never been a wife before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a lot I had to learn.
Yeah, yeah. So can you begin to speak to the learning to love, to the learning to love? Because sometimes people think that warm, fuzzy feeling you have towards your child or toward your children or toward even your husband or anybody, that's love. That's it. And then some people say, well, I don't love this person no more because they don't have that warm, fuzzy feeling. Is that love? Is that the essence of love? That's just that feeling that you have. What would you say to that?
I don't think that's really love. I think that's a feeling, but not love because love you never give up on love.
That's
You
right.
always love. But like I didn't let my husband go to work and I didn't fix breakfast before he left. I
Mm-hmm.
would make sure he had a meal to eat. If he wanted to take a lunch, take a lunch. Come back home, have food on the table for him.
Mm-hmm.
And when the children came, I did the same thing. I made sure my children were fed. I made sure they had a bath, clean. I didn't want my children to be walking around dirty,
Mm-hmm.
the heads nappy, no shoes on their feet. I would get them a bath and clean them up and take care of them. And if I felt like if anybody should do without, I was willing to do without
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted my children to look nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so then once I got all of them raised up and my last one began to leave the home, I got kind of lonely. The house was quiet. Nobody there but me.
Uh-huh.
I hadn't had that feeling in a long time.
Uh-huh.
So I said, well, now I need something to do.
Uh-huh.
So that's when I went back to school. I started learning.
Uh-huh.
Went to school and got my certificate and worked and started working.
Mm-hmm.
But then I still didn't forget my children. I tried to schedule my hours so while my children was in school, when they came home, I would be home.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't want to miss church. That was another thing.
Uh-huh.
So I wouldn't take a job where I had to be to work at 3 over in the evening and get off around 11 at night. I said, no, that won't work because I want to give God his time. I want to be in the service too. I want to be here for my children. And so the Lord just blessed me, and it worked out that way. And I was honestly about that thing. There was one job I really wanted that job. I thought I would really like it, but I kept thinking, but the hours. I said 3 o'clock over in the evening, my children just coming home, and I said I can't do it.
Uh-huh.
I just told her I can't take it.
Yeah.
I need something during the day so that I can be home with my children.
Yeah.
And the Lord had really blessed me.
Yeah.
I always remembered the church. When Bible study came on Monday nights, I wanted to be here. I didn't want to be somewhere on a job. And I had a husband. My husband was working. So my income was not the primary income. So, I just couldn't see myself not being here. And looked like I could just see, in my mind, I could just see my pastor, Bishop Lucas, at the time. And he might have, I would think to myself, he might say, well, wonder where is Sister Pullin? And now here I am, on the job. I said, no, I can't do that. I got to go. I don't want Bishop wondering about me. So I just let that go, made my way to the church every Monday night when I could come.
Yeah. So you made some priorities.
I did.
You prioritize God, you prioritize your husband, you prioritize your children.
Right.
And it sounds like your job and your career, it came under those three things.
It did.
It came after the Lord, after your husband, and after your children.
Right.
Then you had the room for the job. And I know we're in a time now that's what we're talking about now is probably unpopular among.
It might be, but I was like this. I said, now this is one time I want to be nosy. I want to know what's going on with my children. I didn't want to
Yes.
leave my children with anybody.
Yes.
I wanted to know
Yeah.
because I felt like those children were my responsibility. And I wanted to know what was going on with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's not being a busybody in other men's matters because that's actually your matter because they're your children.
That's right.
And you have the responsibility as a mother to raise them, and of course, your husband as the father to raise the children and bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord because they belong to the both of you, and it was a partnership, that you had entered into, and it's just amazing that you actually took that stand early on that you
Yeah, I
wanted to
did.
raise your own children, and you wanted to be there for them, and those type of things. And so, what advice do you give to the young women now, the career women, and we have a lot of educated women who are excellent in what they do, and sometimes people will say this about a stay-at-home wife. And some wives, they'll say that about themselves. They say, I'm just a stay-at-home wife. Well, what would you say to that? I'm just a stay-at-home mom. What do you say to that when they say just a stay-at-home? Like they are less than somebody else that's a lawyer or a doctor or engineer or some other profession. What do you say to that?
And I think at the time I may have said that myself, that I don't work, I stay home. I don't work. But really, I was working.
You were
I wasn't
working.
working outside the home because sometimes society might make you feel that way. But I know now I did the right thing.
Yes.
And for my children to come back and tell me, say, we thank God for you all because y'all raised us right. And now I can't say that every child will tell their parents that.
Yes.
But mine told me that.
Yes.
And I thank God for that. And I would say, you always remember God. Always don't whatever you do, always include Him in your plan.
Yes.
Remember your husband. I know some people married. Someone said, well, I don't want children. Well, maybe that wasn't a discussion before marriage. And you find out after you said I do, The man might want children, but the wife might not. Well, that's the time for you to submit to your husband
Mm-hmm.
because that's your head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just submit to him.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something that you might not quite understand, just go. If it work, if that's what he want, then you go ahead and join up with your husband. Get on his side, so you all will be a team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then if things will work out better,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how I did. But we had the agreement. You know, we knew. I had the understanding that when I married, that I was supposed to have children
Right.
if I could. Now it's a difference if you can't have children.
Well, certainly.
Because somebody, you know, sometimes you just can't have them. And I have talked to women that didn't have children who wanted children.
Uh-huh.
But then I talked to some that could have them and said, I don't want
They
them.
don't want them, yeah.
And it's kind of sad to say, and they might say, well, I don't care what my husband wants. I don't want this. But that's not the way it should be.
I don't care what my husband wants. That's not the right attitude, is what you're
Right.
saying.
It's not the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all need to come together. Even if it takes talking to the pastor of your congregation,
Mm-hmm.
talk with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just go on your own and end up, you know, separating and leaving one another. You know, but try to, you know, come together and get that resolved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, in marriage, there should be some give and take
Yeah.
in marriage anyway. And then now, one of the things I would counsel a couple on before you get married, you should probably talk about children. You should talk about, you know, what your expectation for children is versus, you know, your spouse's. And y'all can have that conversation. But after you done got married, now y'all together now. And,
That's right.
and like you said, if you didn't have that conversation before, now you're having it on the backside, then you've got to do some submission and some agreeing to each other and moving towards each other in that. And then you also have, when you have children, you got to get on the same page with discipline and how you're going to raise the children after you have them. What advice could you give to a young mother in raising children with the husband, and maybe the husband having an idea about how to discipline, and then you may have a different idea? What advice would you give to a young mother in how to discipline and be on the same page with the husband?
Okay, now with my husband and myself, he believed in whipping more,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't. I believe if I could talk to my children, I could get them to do what I wanted them to do. And one time he whipped the children. I told him, I said, I think you whipping them too much.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't get upset with me.
Mm-hmm.
He agreed with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when he stopped. And as a matter of fact, some of my children told me when we went out to dinner that time, they told me, they said, we noticed we used to always get whipping. Then we noticed we didn't stop, the whipping
The
stopped.
whooping stop.
And I told him, I said, well, that's because we had a conversation and we talked and we agreed on that. And I can remember a time my mother whipped us so much after so long a time, when I got around the age of 11 or somewhere around there, I asked her, I said, it must make you feel good to whip us or something, because look like we get so many whipping. I said, sometimes I get whipped and I don't even know what I did wrong. And after that conversation, you know, I don't think she whipped us anymore. And so I grew up, you know, doing that. And so I felt like if I could just talk to my children
Right.
and take up the time with them like I should, that I wouldn't have to do as much whipping. But you have to start when they're young,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
around a year old or somewhere around there when they understand.
Uh-huh.
You tell them not to do something, they see you looking at them, and they decided they want to do it anyway, then that's when I would call mine to me. I said, didn't I tell you don't do that? And you know, that might be all I might say. And then they go back and they go to do the same thing again. Now the second time, my voice gonna get a little louder. Did I tell you not to do that? And they might poke their mouth out at me a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and go back and sit down. But if I leave the room and I see what I told her not to bother and it's gone, I said, now I told you not to bother that, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I might take the old little, do
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And said, when I say don't do it, that's what I mean, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll go from that time there. And then later when they see me, they might see that same thing again. And they'll like, no, no,
They
no. I'm
know.
like, right, no, no, no. That's what mama said. No, don't do that. So when I see that, I know they understand.
Right. That's right. That's right. And in fact, the earlier you train them in that way, you don't have to be so physical.
Right.
You know, as you get older, you don't have to be so physical. You don't have to go to them rough periods like that. If you can actually start early to help them to know that when I say something, I mean what I said
Right.
when I say it. You know, not the 7 or 8 time.
Mhm.
You know, but and so it can help you to alleviate the Walmart situation or the Target or the you're in the store and the child just falling all over the ground and over the floor. I want it, I want it, I want it, just, you know, having a fit. You know, I don't know, have you ever had a situation like that with your children?
No, I seen that. I seen it in this. I have seen it in different places, and I seen look like the mother and sometimes the father look like they wrestling with the children. A little 2-year-old and an adult. I was, I, to me, I'm saying no way.
Uh-huh.
I see that, I was like, no, I get them in check quick.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I have had some of my children. By that time, they might be like 5 or 6, and they'll look at and say, that little boy bad. You know, and they sitting with me. They just sitting there looking at them. I
Uh-huh.
said, ain't you glad you don't have to go through that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they see, they look and they know.
They know.
But yeah, I
They know,
had
so that
one.
little child needs some discipline.
Yeah, even for them to say
Even
that,
for
that
them,
they
your
small.
children said it.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Yes.
But I had one who just fall out in the floor when she couldn't get what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, let her stay there. Fall
Mm-hmm.
out in the floor at home. Just let her stay there.
Mm-hmm.
When the time comes for treat, she won't get anything.
Mm-hmm.
I get the rest of them ice cream or whatever she comes. I said, not you. You don't get one, not this time.
Mm-hmm.
Remember earlier what you did when you hit the floor?
Mm-hmm.
I said, so when you learn to stop doing that, then you can enjoy the treat like the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that broke that up. That
There you
stopped
go.
that.
There you go. See,
So
it's
in
more than
different
one
ways,
way.
you can punish your
That's right.
children.
That's right. That's right. And like I noticed what the Bible said, and I remember too. I know you said how you know you had a conversation with your husband about you know not spanking or being physical as much. You want to talk to him more. And I remember Bishop Lucas, our pastor at the time. He was my friend because he helped me too. He helped me to stop getting so many whippings because he would tell the parents. He told the parents. He said the Bible said train up your child in the way he should go. It didn't say beat him up. See, and so you know some people had a thought that training equals beating. Training equals whipping. Whipping equals training. And the reality of it is that it's just like us when we go on our jobs. We have to be trained on our job. But what would it look like when we go on our job? Every time you do something wrong, your boss pull his belt and strap out. That ain't a good training program, is it?
You know, and one thing I think about too, like I see some of these young guys getting arrested on television with the police, and the police, you know, beating on it and doing. I say if they had the right training, perhaps they wouldn't be going through that.
That's true. That's true.
So, you know, I worry about mine doing that.
Right.
Although one of my sons, he's in working with the police department.
He on the other side of it. He on the good side of the law.
Some of the story he tell us, I mean, it just, you know, I just didn't think people could do some of the things that they do.
Yeah, yeah.
And then once again, he'll tell us, say, I thank God for the teaching,
Yes. Yeah.
for the way y'all taught us.
Right.
Because some of the things that we know and what we taught, they're like, these people, they don't even know. Say, you know, you would think they would, but they don't. So I thank God for the teaching.
Yeah. You know, and a lot of us, we are a product of what our parents did. You know, our parents brought us to church and we began to learn the way of God. And And really, you look at others that may not have been trained that way, and some of it, I would say, is not their fault. Some of it is their parents'
Yeah.
negligence. I know the Bible says in Proverbs 22 and about 6, I think it says, train up a child in the way that he should go. When they're older, they won't depart from it. And the children, they'll remember. They'll remember as they get older, they'll remember. And a lot of training comes through teaching, talking, and then, like you said earlier, the discipline doesn't always have to be the strap.
Right.
The discipline is not always a strap or a switch, or it's not always physical. Sometimes you've got to work with that child's conscience and work with their mind and talk to them and work with you got to work some psychology on them. Just like you said,
Yeah.
you got to be smart.
Yeah.
Because our children, they smart, aren't they?
They are.
You experience your children, they smart, and so you have to kind of, you're the parent, you're the adult, you kind of got to be a little smarter than them.
Yeah, that's right. Cause I keep my little grandson. I used to keep him from time to time. I had him at the house with me one day. Just the two of us there now, himself and me. So I had something. I put it on the table, but I walked away. I went to do something. When I came back, it was gone. So I looked at him. I said, "What happened to what I put on the table?" He told me, "I don't know." I said, "Now, it's just two people in the house, you and me. Now, I didn't get it." And I told him, I said, "So that meant you got it." And you know what he asked me? He said, "How you know?" I said, "Didn't I just say it's just two people in the house?
Two people.
I didn't get it, so I know you got it." And he said, "Oh." So so that was a teaching experience too. But I talked to him a little further about that. I said, "I was gonna give it to you, but I wanted you to ask me for it. I didn't want you to just get it and not say anything."
Right.
But he learned. So sometimes when I would go to the store, I would buy him things, bring things back, and I would tell him, I said, "Now this is for you. You don't have to ask me for it or anything because it's for you." Even though I told him, I said, "You don't have to ask me," he still would
He
ask
still
me
would ask you.
because he remembered that time what I said. And I didn't whip him, but I just talked to him. I used a little wisdom with him.
That's
And
right.
he understood.
That's right. And the Bible even speaks about loving kindness. With loving kindness, he draws us to him. And I don't think you can have a better father than the Lord,
Right.
or a better parent than the Lord. And if we can take some of his cues, some of grace, mercy, and so every time doesn't deserve the harshest punishment. And so sometimes grace, sometimes mercy, that can go farther than the punishment you was gonna give. And then that good talking to, now a conversation like this, you did such and such. Yeah, you did that, right? Yeah, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. I said, now, really, you deserve a punishment, don't you? Yes, yes, ma'am. But you know what? This time, I don't think I'm gonna punish you this time. But I'm gonna tell you this. This is why you shouldn't do this, and this is why you shouldn't do this. And then you begin to give them understanding and instruction, and you teach them, and then they might grasp that a little better that time. I'm not saying you do that all the time. And I just ask you, have you ever worked that kind of way with your children? Where you?
I have. Because just recently, my grandson had a birthday. I told my husband, I said, I want to go see him. I got something I wanted to give him. When I went to the store, I bought him something. And when I got to the house and I saw him, I said, "I'm giving you more this time." And I asked him, I said, "You know why I'm giving you more?" And he tried to guess. He said, "Well, I got good grades in school." I said, "Well, that's part of it." I said, "But the main reason I'm giving you more, because when I asked you to go to church with me, you came." I said, "Now, that's why I want you to have more." I said, "Because when I said ask you to come, you came." I said, "That let me know that you thinking about God. You wanted to come to church, and I just wanted to give you something for that." I said, "That's why I'm giving you more." And he told me, "Thank you."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that may go a long way with him
Hmm.
to see that you're that interested in him, serving God and coming to the house of God. And that's good. And so that's a part of training, though,
Hmm.
And so it's sometimes in training you deal with rewards and I even notice not to equate children to pets or dogs, but even dogs like good treatment.
Right. They do.
And they say the way that you do train a dog is when they do something good, then you give them a treat. You give them a treat, and when they do something bad, then you withhold that treat, or you let them know that that's not the way that they should go,
Hmm.
and ultimately that's what we've got to do with our children. Now, sometimes in training children, it takes some courage to do it, and I just ask you, did you always feel like the discipline part. When you knew it was time for discipline, did you always want to do it?
No, I did, and it made me feel kind of bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized I had to do it
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want this thing to keep coming up.
Right.
So I had to address it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it was, I had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't just let them keep doing something and I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and sometimes some of the things I did, they didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But I told them this was my house, and as long as you here, I'm I have rules. It's just some things I don't want going on in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the parent, so it's up to me. Either I could stop it or let it go. I said, and I'm not gonna stop it. I said, when you here, I said, I want this house, this yard here, the yard, the house, to be like a holy ground.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do anything here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't let anything take place and happen. I don't have nothing to do with the neighbors across the street,
Mm-hmm.
the neighbors to my left or the right or the back of me. But here,
Mm-hmm.
we want to honor God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So some of them, when they grew up, they want to play the other kind of music and play it loud. I said, no, we're not doing that, not here.
Uh-huh.
You want to do that, you got to get your own place.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't like it, but they respected me.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that's what I'm saying. So sometimes you have to use courage, and you address. You don't just let it slide.
Right.
You have to stand up
Yeah.
for what's right, and let your children know what roles you're in. And it seems as though sometimes parents would rather be the child's friend rather than be the parent.
Mm.
What do you think about that?
I want to be their friend too.
Uh-huh.
But that friend come with some corrections though.
Mm-hmm.
If I see you in error, I'm not. How can I be a friend if you in error and I don't say anything to you to help you?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could say something that could save you,
Mm-hmm.
that could stop something from happening to you. So if I see that, I will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I might be taking on more like the parent role at this time.
Uh-huh.
Because if I say it, I will say something. I'm not going to sit there and just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I address it and I will let them know.
Mm-hmm.
It was, see, now you shouldn't have did this. Or
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't have said that. You know better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now the people you talking to, they might not know any better.
Mm-hmm.
But you my child. I know you know better.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's about the way I would handle that.
Right, right, right. And so I agree with you. There are times when it's not time to be friend, it's time to be parent.
Hmm.
And ultimately, yeah, like you said, we want to be our children's friend.
Hmm.
But there are times when you got to be parent.
Right.
And that role's got to supersede friendship.
That's right.
And so then you might have to do some discipline or some correction, and some of your talk may have to be different from that of a friend or a buddy.
Hmm.
And what some parents do though is they want to let the friendship part be the number one, and then they'll hold off on, well, at that point, where's the parent now? Now everybody's supposed to be your child's friend, but they don't have no parent. You got to be, parenting has to be your priority as a mother, or as a, I would say as a father as well, um, but that has to be the number one job. And then the friendship can come later. I'll share this with you. You remember my mother.
Right, I do.
And she was very strong, and she was a disciplinarian too.
Mm-hmm.
And like she did go to where she would talk more and spank or whip less. She did go to that position where she did talk more. And I thought she was just this mean lady, and I didn't like her too good as a little boy. But as I started getting older, I got into my teenage years. I started to recognize, my mama loved me.
Mm-hmm.
My mama loved me. And I began to see the benefit of her discipline. I actually started to see it even as a teenager. I started to see the benefit of her discipline. And, I had other people who would just do nice things for me and be real kind and just let me almost have my way. Mm-hmm. And I began to see that wasn't that helpful to me. To let me have my way part, that wasn't that helpful to me. But what my mama did, how she used courage to straighten me out and get me on the right track, I said, now that's what I really need. And as I began to grow as a young man, I began to see I need what she's doing for me. Mm-hmm. And we actually became good friends. We became good friends, especially as I got a little older. I started going to lunch with my mom, and we just sit down and we'd talk and eat. And one of her main things she wanted to talk about is how she did as a mother. Because she was concerned, you know. And but we became good friends as a man and as I grew older. But as a little lad, I needed what she was doing for me. And all of it I didn't like, but it was good for me. It was good for me. And what do you think?
Well, as you were talking, I was thinking about my childhood. I had an aunt, and long as she could drink, and I used to go over to their house and play checkers, because I was around there, and I learned to play real good, got
Mm-hmm.
real good at it. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to play nobody around my age. I wanted to get with the adults, because they weren't no challenge to me, the kids.
Yes.
So I played with them, and I would go over there every day playing, and just talking and all. And then it wasn't too long ago. After that, my mother, she got serious about church. She wanted to come into holiness. Mm-hmm. And she didn't like it. I seen a different side of my aunt. Mm-hmm. She said, no, why would you want to go join that mess? That's what she called it. Mm-hmm. You're messing old children up getting in there. Because what happened, see, I stopped going over to the house, being with them. Mm-hmm. Even though she would have a lot of drinking and stuff like that. But I knew not to bother, not to get into any of that part. Because my mother had taught her. Because now my mother used to make homebrew.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she used to make it. Uh-huh. And she would tell us, don't y'all bother this here. Mm-hmm. So we wouldn't bother. We never, I never bothered. I can't speak for
because you were one of the good kids.
Right. I could speak for my brothers and sisters, but I never bothered. Uh-huh. And so, but when we come into holiness, oh boy, she did not like it. Uh-huh. She just didn't. And I don't know if this really, I can't say that this happened for that reason. But it wasn't long after that she died. Mm. I see. And and I often think about that, But anyway, I was just saying how the Lord helped us to escape that.
Right, right.
So when my mother started coming to the church, I really liked the things that I was hearing. Mm-hmm. I liked the songs because they were singing songs that I never heard before. Mm-hmm. And when the preaching went forward, they would say things that made so much sense to me. Mm-hmm. And in the Baptist church, the preacher would always go to the graveyard talking about his dead mama and all. And I used to wonder, that used to puzzle me as a child. Mm-hmm. And when we came to the true church, they actually were telling us things that we need to do it just made so much sense to me. Mm-hmm. And some things they would say it were funny, but it was true. It still was right. And so we enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And we would tell Mama, let's go back to this church, because she was going around to several churches at first. Some of them we went to, we would tell her, we don't want to go back to that one. Why? We didn't like that one. Well, let's go back to this other one where you went. Let's go back there. So eventually it got to the place where we just always went to the true Church of God in Christ.
Right.
And looked like we just had a good relationship, with, just coming here. And she thought she was going to have a lot of trouble out of us because she had 5 girls. And she had bought sofas for the living room. So when we started dating, we could have a place to talk. But we didn't hardly use those sofas. We didn't have boys coming to our house. And she said, y'all some good children. She said, I thought it would have been this or been like this, but it wasn't nothing like that.
Right.
Because we heard the word of God. And I know for me, I was doing all I could to obey.
Right.
Now, I had one sister that didn't want to take heed. And she said she thought the preacher, that was just something that they were saying, just that's how they felt. She didn't know God was leading them to say the thing that they said. But when she found out, then she come on and join up with us too.
Yeah. Well, that's a blessing. And it's a blessing that you have learned, from a little child. You learned the scriptures and the things that will make you wise unto salvation. Then it allowed you to marry a husband and then have children of your own, create another generation, and then you was able to bring them up right. And then have your children to come back and, like the Bible said that in the book of Proverbs 31, it said the children will rise up and call you blessed. And then to have them to actually come back and do that. The Bible talk about a virtuous woman. And so that's a blessing. And we're glad to have you as our mother, our church mother at Lucas Temple. And we'd invite others to just come out and be a partaker of this gospel and allow this gospel to be a help. And I will say that you are a good mother. And the things that you've learned and experienced will allow you to help a young mother to get some instructions and some understanding about how to be a good mother, how to be a good wife. And I think your husband praised you too.
Oh, yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the children's side, but then there's another conversation we can have about being a wife. And I know that some young people, they're kind of reaching out for that. They want more instructions about, being a wife. And so maybe we can have another conversation about that. Most of our conversation today has been about the raising the children and being a mother to children. And there's a lot of skill involved in it. And it's a way to love. It's not a feeling, but it's some instructions that has to be done. Like the scripture says in Titus 2, and it says, teach them, aged women, teach them to love their husbands and love their children. And so there's some skill involved. If you have to be taught, then some skill has to come into play. And you shared some skills with us today. Thank you for that. But I don't think you shared it all.
No, I didn't.
It's some you done held back, and perhaps time just wouldn't permit it all to come out today.
Yeah.
And that's the other reason why, if you're a young mother, if you're a young sister, perhaps you haven't married yet, and you're thinking about getting married, you're thinking about having children, you're already married, or perhaps you've got your first child, and you're kind of new at it. This is a resource right here. Mother Pullin is a resource. You can reach out to her. You can come and she will give you the instruction that you need that will help you to be successful in your motherhood. You agree with that, Mother?
I do.
You'd be glad to do it, wouldn't you?
I will.
And so we appreciate that. Thank you for this time.
All right, thank you.
God bless you.
All
And God
right.
bless you all.